No presents for you, Dad. You need to learn your lesson, my daughter chuckled on Christmas Eve. She stood under a 10-foot tree in the living room of the house I'd practically bought for her eyes bright with a cruel kind of amusement. She had no idea what was really going on behind my smile. What would you do if you were me? Read to the end and decide if I went too far. And tell me honestly what you would have done in my place. My name is Thomas Reed, but everyone calls me Tom. I'm 71 years old, a retired construction contractor from Ohio, a widower of 4 years, and a grandfather to 2 kids who used to be the sun in my sky. My daughter, Ashley, is 38, married to a man named Brad, and they live in a 5-bedroom monument to my bad habit of rescuing people. This Christmas Eve was supposed to be about family, healing, and maybe a little peace. Instead, it turned into the night I stopped being their ATM and became something they never expected. It started long before the twinkling lights and cinnamon candles. When my wife Linda died, I almost sold everything and moved south. We'd planned to retire to North Carolina, maybe a small place near the water, where her joints wouldn't complain every winter. Instead, she died in late October, before we could even book a trip. The funeral happened under gray Midwestern skies, and afterward, Ashley stood in my kitchen, holding my hand, promising she'd never let me be alone. "Dad, we're your family," she'd said, tears streaking her mascara. "You can come over any time. We'll take care of you." I believed her. Back then, Ashley still hugged me without looking at the clock. Brad still called me Tom and not Sir or Old Man. Their kids, Mia, who was 8 at the time, and Connor, who was 5, would run across my living room in socks, sliding on the hardwood I'd installed myself, shrieking with laughter while Linda's old wind chimes hummed on the back porch. When they wanted to move out of their cramped starter home, I was the one who made it happen. They had some savings, but not enough for the big house Ashley had circled in the real estate listings, the one in the new development with the wide streets and manicured lawns. So I sold a rental property Linda and I had kept as our safety net and wrote a check for their down payment. "It's a loan," I'd told them at the time, trying to sound firm, though my voice softened every time Mia tugged at my sleeve. "We'll put it in writing. Low interest. We'll work out a schedule." "Of course, Dad," Ashley had said, throwing her arms around my neck. "You know we'll pay you back." My lawyer drafted a private mortgage tied to their house. They signed the papers quickly, laughing, kissing my cheek. "We trust you," Brad said. "It's just a formality, right?" Every room in that house had a price tag I'd quietly paid, even if my name wasn't on a single frame photo anymore. At first it felt good. Helping them felt like a way to keep Linda's love alive. She'd always pushed me to be generous, sometimes more than was wise. So I paid the grandkids' private school tuition when Ashley said public school wasn't safe anymore. I covered the surprise roof repair. I helped with the second car when Brad insisted he needed a better SUV for work. They always promised to make it right later. Later never came. Instead came little comments, little shifts. A sigh when I called, a pause before inviting me to dinner. Jokes about my hearing, my memory, the way I repeated stories. "Dad, you already told us that," Ashley would say, rolling her eyes. "Yeah, Tom, you're really leaning into this grandpa thing," Brad would add with a smile that never reached his eyes. It built slowly. Resentment is like rust. You don't notice it at first, not until the whole beam flexes. The first real crack appeared last spring. It was a Sunday afternoon. The kids were outside, drawing on the driveway with chalk. Brad was scrolling on his phone. Ashley was sitting across from me at the kitchen table, a neat stack of papers between us. "Dad, this is just standard estate planning," she said, pushing the folder toward me. "Everyone our age is doing this for their parents. It's about making things easier later." Her tone was gentle, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. I opened the folder and saw the words "Durable Power of Attorney" at the top of the first document. Next pages. Transfer of property, healthcare proxy, living trust, all pre-filled with their names. I thought we already did my will at Linda's lawyer, I said slowly. Remember? You were there. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. This is better, Dad. This gives us the ability to step in and help you when things get harder, before something bad happens. Brad chimed in from his stool by the island. You almost burned your coffee last month, remember? Left the burner on. It could have been serious. I caught it, I said more sharply than I intended. Sure, Brad said. This time. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I flipped through the pages. So many places for my signature, so many neat blanks already filled in with their names. What's the rush? I asked. Ashley's jaw tightened. The rush is that we care about you. You're alone, Dad. If something happens, we need the legal authority to take care of things, and the house, and your accounts. We can't just wait around while the state decides what to do with you. She said it like she was discussing garbage pickup. I studied her face. The little girl who used to beg me for one more bedtime story was still there if I looked hard enough. But there was something else, too. Harder, colder. I want my lawyer to look at these, I said finally, closing the folder. Silence dropped over the kitchen like a curtain. Brad's fingers stopped tapping on the marble. Dad, Ashley said slowly, do you not trust us? I do, I lied. But I've spent 50 years working. I'm not signing a stack of legal documents someone else downloaded from the internet without my attorney reading them. Her mouth tightened. Fine, take your time. But things would be easier if you just trusted me. She said trusted like obedient. After that, something in her shifted. Calls became shorter, invitations rarer. When I visited, Brad would walk through the house on his phone talking about cash flow and liquidity, always somewhere else even while standing in the same room. Then came the conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. It was early November. I'd stopped by with a bag of groceries. Linda used to make Ashley her favorite pot roast this time of year, and I decided to try. I approached the front door and heard voices inside, carried clearly through the glass. We can't wait another 5 years, Ash, Brad was saying. By then he'll either burn the house down or forget his PIN number. We need control now. Ashley's voice was sharp. You think I don't know that? But you saw him at the table. He's paranoid. Mom's death made it worse. Then push him harder. He owes us, after everything we've done. You passed up law school to have Mia, remember? You sacrificed your career. The least he can do is sign some papers. I stood frozen on the porch, my hand halfway to the doorknob. Once we have power of attorney, Brad continued, we can restructure his investments, move some cash around, consolidate the properties. Sell that townhouse of his and put him somewhere safer. It's win-win. And what if he throws a fit? Ashley asked. Let him. You heard the doctor. One incident and they'll sign off on diminished capacity. Then it's out of his hands anyway. My knees felt suddenly weak. I stepped back quietly, my heart pounding. I left the groceries on the porch, rang the bell, and walked away before they opened the door. That night I couldn't sleep. Linda's photo on the nightstand seemed to watch me, her familiar half-smile suddenly unreadable. I'm trying, I whispered to the empty room. But I think our girl lost her compass. The next day I called my lawyer. Her name is Jennifer Green, and she's younger than Ashley, but she has eyes like tempered steel. She listened without interrupting while I told her everything, about the papers, the conversation, the future plans for my life. When I finished, she folded her hands. Mr. Reed, she said, you're not the first client who's come in with this kind of story, and you won't be the last. The good news? You still have full capacity. You still control your estate. If you want to protect yourself and still take care of your grandchildren, we can do that. We spent 2 hours going over options. Put my townhouse into an irrevocable trust with me as trustee and Mia and Connor as beneficiaries. Rewrite my will to skip Ashley and Brad almost entirely, leaving them only a token amount. Convert the loan for their down payment into a formal mortgage with clear terms I could enforce. And if they continue to pressure you or try to move money without permission, Jennifer said, we'll have documentation showing a pattern. That matters. Walking out of that office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. I didn't want revenge then. I wanted safety, boundaries, a way to still love my daughter without giving her the keys to my life. Then came Christmas. Ashley insisted on hosting Christmas Eve. We're starting our own traditions, she'd said on the phone, and the kids love seeing you here. It'll be like always. Like always. I spent all afternoon in my small kitchen cooking Linda's recipes: ginger cookies, green bean casserole, a turkey breast with rosemary and lemon. My old hands moved slowly, but they remembered. I wrapped presents for the kids, books, a Lego set, a jewelry kit Mia had circled in a catalog. I even bought Ashley a delicate necklace like the ones Linda used to wear, and Brad a set of quality tools he'd probably never touch. The wind was sharp when I stepped out to my car, arms loaded. Christmas lights twinkled up and down my street. Somewhere a radio played Silent Night. My heart hammered, but I told myself I was being dramatic. It was Christmas. Families fight and forgive. That's what Linda always believed. Their neighborhood looked like the cover of a catalog: synchronized lights, inflatable snowmen, matching wreaths. I parked at the curb and slowly carried my offerings up to their front door. Brad opened it, phone in hand, Bluetooth in his ear. "Oh," he said, as if he'd forgotten inviting me. "Tom, you made it." "Hi, Dad," Mia cried from the foyer, running to hug me. Connor barreled in behind her, nearly knocking the presents from my hands. Ashley appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She kissed my cheek perfunctorily. "Hey, Dad," she said. "You're early?" "Traffic was light," I said. "Smells good in here." She smiled vaguely. "Yeah, well, I had to pick up some things last minute." I followed her gaze to the dining room. The table glittered with silverware and crystal I'd never seen before. The tree in the corner was towering, dripping with ornaments that looked more like price tags than memories. I set my dishes in the kitchen. My casserole nestled beside takeout containers from an upscale catering service. My turkey breast looked small next to a professionally glazed ham. "Kids, why don't you put Grandpa's gifts under the tree?" Ashley said, not looking at the packages. Mia and Connor obeyed eagerly. I watched them kneel by the tree, pushing my wrapped boxes toward the back, behind dozens of others with glossy paper and elaborate bows. We ate. They told stories that didn't include me. Brad raved about a new deal at work. Ashley complained about a PTA mom. The kids bickered over who got more mashed potatoes. Every now and then someone would remember I existed and toss me a question. "How's the townhouse, Dad? Doctor say you're doing okay? You still driving at night?" After dinner we moved to the living room for presents. This had always been Linda's favorite part, watching the kids tear into paper while we sipped cocoa. Ashley dimmed the lights, turned on some Christmas playlist, and announced, "Okay, everybody, sit down. We're doing gifts." The kids plopped on the floor. Brad leaned back on the sofa, arm around Ashley's shoulders. I took my usual spot on the armchair by the window. Ashley started with the kids, of course. New tablets, brand-name sneakers, designer hoodies. The wrapping paper piled up like drifts of snow. They shrieked and laughed and said thank you in the distracted way of children who know there's more coming. Then Ashley passed a box to Brad. He opened it to find an expensive watch. "Damn," he said, admiring it. "Babe, you shouldn't have." She giggled. "You deserve it." They kissed. It felt like watching a commercial. Finally, Ashley glanced at me, then at the small gift I'd labeled with her name. It sat near her feet, dull among the big, glossy boxes. "Is that from you, Dad?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Just something small. I know money's been tight." Brad snorted softly, thinking I didn't hear. Ashley didn't reach for it. Instead, she leaned back deeper into the sofa, her smile turning tight. "You know what?" she said, loudly enough that the kids looked up. "We should talk about gifts, actually. Dad, we need to clear the air." A knot formed in my stomach. "Clear the air?" Ashley crossed her legs, the diamond on her ring flashing. "About everything. Money, the documents, the way you've been acting. And since you refused to sign the estate paperwork, Brad and I talked, and we decided something." She paused for effect, eyes glittering in the tree lights. "No presents for you, Dad," she said, chuckling. "You need to learn your lesson." The room went still. Mia's head whipped toward her mother. "Mom," she whispered, horrified. Ashley waved a manicured hand. "Relax, honey. It's just... actions have consequences. Dad thinks we're out to steal from him, so fine, he can keep his money. But we're done walking on eggshells. No more gifts, no more bending over backward to include him if he doesn't trust us." Brad shifted, clearly pleased with the performance. "We're just setting boundaries, Tom," he added. "Healthy ones." My face felt oddly numb. "You decided to punish me?" I asked softly. "Like a child." Ashley's eyes hardened. "We decided to stop rewarding paranoia. You refused to give us the tools to help you. We see how you look at us now, like we're grave robbers. It hurts, Dad. So yeah, this year we're focusing on our kids, our family." I looked at Mia and Connor. They stared back, their joy curdled into confusion. "Mom," Connor whispered, "why does Grandpa not get a present? Did he do something bad?" Ashley exhaled, impatient. "Go play in the front room, okay? Mommy and Grandpa are having an adult conversation." They shuffled out. Mia cast me one last worried glance. I sat up straighter in my chair. The old ache in my knees and the heaviness in my chest seemed to fall away, replaced by something cold and razor-sharp. "You think gifts are your leverage over me?" I said quietly. Ashley laughed, but there was a tremor in it. "It's not about leverage. It's about sending a message. You hurt us when you refused to sign those papers. If you don't trust us, why should we keep pretending everything is fine?" Brad added, "And honestly, Tom, with how stubborn you've been, it felt appropriate. Maybe it'll make you think." I looked around their living room. Custom curtains, imported rug, a kitchen filled with smeared fingerprints of catering staff. All of it built on a foundation of my work, my calloused hands, my missing weekends. "You're right," I said eventually, rising slowly. "I should think, and I will." Ashley's smug expression faltered. "Dad, don't be dramatic. Sit down. I'm tired," I said, "and I don't want to spoil your night." I walked to the front room where Mia and Connor sat on the floor, half-heartedly assembling Lego bricks. "You kids take care of each other," I murmured, crouching with effort to kiss their heads. "I'll see you soon." "Grandpa," Mia whispered, "are you mad?" I forced a smile. "Not at you." Outside, the cold air hit my lungs like a slap. I walked down their perfect driveway, holiday lights reflecting off my car's windshield. In the rear-view mirror, their house glowed warm and golden, full of people who'd just decided I needed to be taught a lesson. They had no idea I'd already done my homework. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Linda's old scarf still hung from the passenger seat of my sedan, the faint scent of her perfume long gone but still alive in my mind. In my townhouse, the quiet wrapped around me like a blanket. I set my unused casserole on the counter, dropped into my chair, and closed my eyes. The hurt was there, of course, a raw, jagged thing. But beneath it, something else was rising. Not rage, not exactly, clarity. After a few minutes, I stood and went to the hall closet. The small fireproof safe sat on the floor behind a stack of winter boots. My fingers fumbled with the combination, but the dial felt familiar, comforting. Inside, neatly organized, lay the documents Jennifer had prepared. The new will, leaving the bulk of my estate to Mia and Connor, with a trustee I trusted more than my daughter. A letter of instruction explaining why. The trust papers for my townhouse. The updated mortgage agreement for Ashley and Brad's house, notarized and recorded. I spread them across the dining table, my hands steady now. If Ashley wanted lessons, I would give them. Then I checked my mailbox. A thin stack of envelopes waited, most of them junk. One, however, bore the logo of a bank I didn't recognize. My chest tightened as I tore it open. "Welcome to your new Platinum Rewards Visa," it read. "Approved credit line $25,000. First purchase, $4,732.16 at Holiday Travel Group, Miami, Florida." The statement listed a billing address, Ashley and Brad's. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. I flipped through the rest of the mail. Another envelope from my longtime bank, noting unusual activity on my account. A transfer I hadn't initiated. A note suggesting I call my branch manager to confirm recent changes. I sank into my chair, the letter trembling in my hand. They hadn't just wanted legal control in the future. They'd already started spending my money. For a long minute, all I could hear was the ticking of the kitchen clock and the roaring in my ears. Then something quieted. Because if there's one thing a lifetime in construction teaches you, it's this. When you discover rot, you don't ignore it. You cut it out before it brings the whole structure down. And sitting there under the harsh kitchen light on Christmas Eve, I realized my family tree was more rotten than I'd wanted to admit. You might think this was the moment I broke. You'd be wrong. This was the moment I started to build something new. Because here's the thing. They thought denying me a few wrapped boxes under a tree would humble me. They had no idea the kind of present I was about to deliver. What would you do if you discovered your own child had already started stealing from you? The next morning, Christmas Day, I called my bank's 24-hour fraud line. I confirmed what the letter implied. A credit card had been opened in my name using my social security number with Ashley's address and email. A sizable charge for a spring break family trip had already hit the account. "We can freeze it, Mr. Reed," the woman on the phone said. "We'll open a fraud investigation. We will, however, need a police report." I stared at the small artificial tree in my corner, its lights still blinking from the night before. Linda had always insisted on a real tree. This year I'd settled for plastic. "Do it," I said. "Freeze everything. I'll file the report." By noon, I'd spoken to Jennifer again. She listened and let out a slow breath. "I'm sorry," she said. "But in a way, this makes things clearer. Fraud is a line, Mr. Reed. Most judges don't like that line crossed." "I'm not worried about judges yet," I said. "I just don't want them touching any more of my money." "Then we move quickly," she replied. "We'll notify all your institutions first thing Monday, and I'd like you to consider something else." "What's that?" "You have the legal right to call the mortgage note you extended to your daughter and son-in-law. Given the fraud, you can argue breach of trust. You'd be within your rights to demand repayment, or failing that, to initiate foreclosure proceedings. It's drastic, but—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I pictured Mia and Connor in that big house, the only home they remembered. I thought of Ashley's smirk under the Christmas lights. "Let's draft the notice," I said. "We'll see how drastic they want this to get." Jennifer started working on the letter immediately. I spent Christmas afternoon alone, washing my single plate, my single fork, my single cup. The TV murmured in the background, some movie about families reconciling under the mistletoe. I turned it off. Around 5, my phone buzzed. It was Mia. "Grandpa?" Her small voice came through the line. "Are you okay?" My heart cracked a little more. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, forcing the tightness from my throat. "Did you have a good morning?" She hesitated. "We opened presents. Mom said you were tired, but—" I saw the envelope. What envelope? The one you left on the tree by accident, with my name. Mom put it in a drawer when you left. She thought I didn't see. I frowned. I didn't leave an envelope, honey. I just brought the gifts that ended up under the tree. Silence. I left you something, though, she whispered. In your coat pocket. Last night. Before you went home. Did you see it? My chest tightened. I pulled my coat from the stand and reached into the inside pocket. My fingers brushed paper. A folded note, written in loopy 11-year-old handwriting. Dear Grandpa, it read. I don't know why Mom is being mean. I heard her and Dad talking and it sounded bad. Please don't let them send you away. I don't want you to go. Love, Mia. My hands trembled slightly. I got it, I said softly. And I'm not going anywhere I don't choose to go, okay? She sniffled. Promise? I promise. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, the note still in my hand. Whatever I did next would affect her life too. But then I remembered the credit card, the transfer, the casual way Ashley had humiliated me in front of her children because I hadn't handed her the legal keys to my life fast enough. Consequences. The word rolled through my mind like thunder. On Monday morning, I met Jennifer again. We signed letters and directives. We notified every bank, every brokerage. We froze certain accounts, changed passwords, added extra verification. We drafted the formal notice of default and demand for payment addressed to Ashley and Brad Reed. Amount due, the entire outstanding balance of their private mortgage. Due in full in 60 days. If they can't pay, Jennifer said, we'll have the option to start foreclosure proceedings. We can always negotiate repayment terms if they actually show good faith. But the power will be in your hands, not theirs. I nodded slowly. Good. She studied me. Are you sure you want to go this far? I thought of Ashley's laugh, Brad's sneer, the bank statement in my hand, the fear in Mia's voice. I didn't start this, I said, but I'm going to finish it. We also drafted my own letter, not a legal document, a father's document. It explained in plain language what they had done, what I knew, and what I was about to do. It outlined the fraud, the breach of trust, the documents I'd signed to protect myself. And it invited them to dinner. New Year's Eve, at my townhouse. One last family gathering before the year turned over. Is that wise? Jennifer asked. I want to say this once, I replied. Look them in the eye. After that, everything can go through you. Ashley texted me the next day instead of calling. Dad, we're still really hurt about Christmas. But we'll come to dinner so we can clear the air before the new year. 6:30, okay? Perfect. The week leading up to New Year's Eve was strangely calm. I bought groceries. I cleaned the townhouse. I found Linda's old recipe cards again, smoothing the worn edges with my thumb. On the afternoon of the 31st, I set the table with the good plates we'd only used for company. I laid 3 envelopes at each place, 2 white, 1 yellow. The white ones contained copies of the bank's fraud notices and Jennifer's demand letter. The yellow one contained a copy of my new will. I put Mia's and Connor's names on 2 envelopes and placed them in my desk drawer for later. At 6:35, my doorbell rang. Ashley stood on the porch, coat wrapped tightly around her, Brad slightly behind her, hands in his pockets. Their smiles were brittle. Hi, Dad, Ashley said. Happy almost New Year. Come in, I replied, stepping aside. They looked around as they entered, as if seeing my home for the first time. The framed photos of Linda, the worn but clean furniture, the small tree in the corner. It smells good, Ashley said. You didn't have to go to all this trouble. Yes, Brad added, glancing briefly at the table. We appreciate the effort. Maybe we can finally talk like adults tonight. I gestured to their chairs. Let's sit. They took their seats. Ashley frowned at the envelopes. What's all this? She asked. Gifts, I said. Since I didn't get any on Christmas Eve, I thought I'd hand some out myself. Her cheeks flushed. Dad, we already talked about that. You're really going to— I haven't said a word about it until now, I interrupted calmly. Tonight, we're going to talk. You first. I folded my hands and looked at her. Tell me why you opened a credit card in my name. Their faces drained of color so quickly it was almost impressive. I don't know what you're talking about, Ashley stammered. Brad shook his head. Tom, if this is another one of your misunderstandings— I slid the first white envelope toward them. Statement from First National Bank. Card ending in 4482. Opened with my social security number, your address. First charge, a family trip to Florida. Care to explain? Ashley's eyes darted across the page. Her lips moved silently. That must be some kind of mistake, she said weakly. Brad leaned in, reading faster. His jaw tightened. We were going to pay it back, he blurted. It's just a card. You weren't using your credit. We were going to surprise you with the trip too, as a present. A present, I repeated. Like the non-present you gave me? That was a joke, Ashley snapped, color returning to her face in a rush of anger. We were hurt and you know it. You've been treating us like thieves and now you're acting shocked that we tried to use a little of what will be ours anyway? Silence buzzed between us. It isn't yours, I said quietly. Not now. Not automatically later. It's mine while I'm alive and it goes where I say when I'm gone. That's how this works. Brad scoffed. We're your only family. Exactly, I said, which makes what you did even worse. I pushed the second white envelope forward. That, I said, is the bank's fraud notice. They've frozen the account. They suggested I file a police report. My lawyer agrees. Ashley's voice rose. You called a lawyer? About us? I called a lawyer months ago, I said, when you slid those power of attorney papers across the table. When I heard you talking about putting me in a home and selling my townhouse. When you turned my life into a contingency plan. She flinched. You heard that? I was on the porch with a bag of groceries, I said. The ones I left there because I suddenly lost my appetite. Brad shifted in his chair. You're blowing this out of proportion. Families share things, resources. That's all we were talking about. Is fraud a resource? I asked. He opened his mouth, then shut it. I let the silence stretch until even the refrigerator's hum seemed loud. Then I slid the third envelope, the yellow one, toward them. This, I said, is my new will. Ashley stared at it, not touching it. We had a will drawn up when Mom died, she whispered. We did, I agreed. It left you everything. I felt good about that. I trusted you. Her eyes glistened. What did you do, Dad? I changed it, I said simply. Mia and Connor will inherit my estate when they're old enough, with a trustee who will make sure it actually goes to them. A small portion goes to charity. As for you and Brad, I pointed to the second page. $1 each. Symbolic. Ashley's chair scraped back. You cut us out? She shouted. You cut your own daughter out of your will? Brad slammed his hand on the table. That's insane, Tom. After everything we've done for you. I stood slowly, my knees protesting. Everything you've done for me? I repeated. Let's review. You took my money. You took my time. You took the house I helped you buy and turned it into a stage to humiliate me on Christmas. You opened a credit card in my name. You plan to take control of every asset I have and restructure me into an institution. Ashley shook her head, tears spilling over now. We just wanted to keep you safe. You wanted control, I said. You wanted convenience. You wanted to live in that big house and drive those cars and send those kids to private school without ever feeling the weight of the bills. And as long as I kept paying quietly, I was the perfect dad. Brad's face twisted. Are you done lecturing? Because if you're trying to blackmail us into apologizing, it's not going to work. We'll contest that will. We'll say you're not competent. About that, I said. I reached for one last document from my folder and slid it across the table. The letterhead bore Jennifer's firm's name. This is a demand for payment, I said. On your mortgage. Ashley blinked. Our mortgage is with Midstate Bank, she said weakly. Part of it, I said. The other part is with me. That down payment I gave you? Never a gift. A loan, secured by a second position mortgage on your home. You signed it. With witnesses. It's recorded with the county. I tapped the letter. This notice calls the note. You have 60 days to pay the full remaining amount. If you don't, my attorney will begin foreclosure proceedings. They stared at me as if I'd spoken another language. You can't do that, Brad whispered. You wouldn't. I can, I said. Whether I will depends on you. On how honest you are about what you've done. On whether you're willing to make things right. But I'm done letting you hold my love hostage. Ashley shot to her feet, knocking her chair over. You're trying to make us homeless. I took a deep breath. No. I'm giving you a choice between living within your means or continuing to live on lies. You told me I needed to learn a lesson on Christmas Eve. Consider this my homework assignment for you. Her face contorted in fury and something like fear. You monster, she choked out. All because you didn't get a stupid present? I laughed once, short and humorless. Ashley, this has nothing to do with a present. That was just the moment I finally believed who you've become. Brad's voice was a low growl now. If you file that fraud report, you'll ruin us. My job requires a clean record. We could lose everything. You should have thought of that before you put a trip on a card in my name, I said. I haven't filed anything yet, but if any money goes missing from my accounts from this day forward, if any document shows up at my door that I didn't personally authorize, the police will hear about Christmas and everything that came before. Ashley's shoulders shook. What about Mia? What about Connor? You put them through losing their home? My voice softened slightly. I didn't do that. You did when you treated the man who loves them most after you as a burden instead of a blessing. But I won't punish them for your choices. If you lose that house, I'll set aside funds from their trust so they can go to college. So they won't be shackled by your debt. I picked up my napkin and laid it neatly beside my plate. But I will not keep funding your life so you can keep kicking me. For a moment, the only sound in the room was Ashley's ragged breathing. Then she swept the envelopes off the table, sending papers flying. You're dead to me, she hissed. Do you hear me? Dead. Don't call. Don't come around. Don't you dare talk to my kids. Brad grabbed her arm. Let's go, he muttered. They stormed out, the front door slamming hard enough to rattle the photos on my wall. I stood alone in the aftermath, stray pages rustling on the floor like fallen leaves. Linda's picture seemed to watch me from the mantel. I picked it up, running my thumb over the glass. I finally did it, I said quietly. Too late, maybe, but I did it. For the first time in a long time, I slept deeply that night. The fallout came faster than I expected. Within a week, I got a flurry of texts and missed calls from Ashley, alternating between rage and pleading. She said she hadn't meant the things she'd said. She said Brad had pressured her. She said she'd only used the card to get ahead of things, and that of course they would have paid it back. She accused me of choosing money over family, of letting a lawyer poison my mind, of abandoning my grandchildren. I didn't respond. I let Jennifer handle the formal reply. A letter offering a path forward. They would close any accounts opened in my name. They would sign a written agreement not to touch my finances in any way. They would enter into a new payment plan on the mortgage, more modest but enforceable. They would attend family counseling if we were going to rebuild trust. They refused. 2 weeks later, Jennifer filed the formal fraud report. The bank launched its investigation. Brad's employer put him on leave, pending determination. The 60-day clock on the mortgage started ticking. Word spread through their circle faster than I thought it would. The nice neighbors with the big house and the fancy SUV suddenly had a story attached. The son-in-law who got caught using his father-in-law's identity. The daughter who tried to strip her dad of his autonomy before he needed help. People stopped coming around as much, from what I heard. I saw the for sale sign go up in their yard on the 44th day. They must have realized they couldn't afford the mortgage without my silent subsidies. I parked half a block away, watching from my car as a real estate agent hammered the post into the frozen ground. Ashley stood on the porch, arms crossed tightly, her face pale. Brad wasn't there. Mia and Connor peered from an upstairs window. Mia spotted me. Our eyes met across the distance, through glass and winter air. She lifted her hand, just slightly, in a small, tentative wave. I raised mine back, hoping she could see. I didn't go up to the house. This wasn't my moment. Not yet. They sold below asking. The market had dipped. Between paying off the primary mortgage and the remaining balance on the loan they owed me, plus closing costs, the profit was much smaller than they'd imagined when they'd first moved in. Jennifer wired my share to my trust account. Ashley sent one last message. I hope you're happy. We lost everything because of you. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed the only reply I could live with. You didn't lose everything. You still have your husband, your children, and a chance to start again without lies. When you're ready to talk honestly, I'll be here. Until then, take care. She never responded. Months passed. I sold my townhouse and moved into a smaller condo in a 55-plus community with an elevator and neighbors who waved when they saw me. I joined the woodworking club. I taught a couple of the guys how to fix a leaky faucet and patch drywall. I found myself laughing at small things again. A joke at the coffee bar. A dog chasing its leash. I updated my estate plan one more time, adding a clause. When Mia and Connor turned 18, they would each receive a letter explaining what had happened from my perspective. Not to poison them against their parents, but to tell the truth. I saw my grandchildren occasionally, at school events mostly. We'd exchange quick hugs in gymnasiums scented with popcorn and sweat. Ashley avoided me, but she didn't physically block the kids anymore. Maybe some part of her knew she'd pushed too far. Last Christmas Eve, 1 year after the night with no presents, I sat in my new living room with a simple tree in the corner and a mug of cocoa in my hands. Snow fell outside, softening the world. My doorbell rang. When I opened it, Mia and Connor stood on the step, bundled in winter coats. Mom dropped us off, Mia said quickly. She said we could visit for a little while. My chest ached. Come in, I said, stepping aside. You're letting all the cold air in. They burst into the condo, eyes wide, taking in the new space. It wasn't big, but it was warm, full of things that actually belonged to me. Under the modest tree stood 2 boxes, wrapped in simple paper. For you, I said. Mia picked up the smaller one and read the tag. To Mia, from Grandpa. Her hands shook just a little as she opened it. Inside was a set of drawing pencils and a sketchbook, the good kind Linda used to buy for Ashley before college. For your art, I said softly. I've seen what you draw. You're good. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Connor tore into his box, revealing a model car kit and a promise of Saturday afternoons at my kitchen table, glue and paint and patience. They stayed an hour. We played a board game. We talked about school. I avoided saying anything bad about their parents. That wasn't my job. When Ashley came to pick them up, she hovered in the doorway. She looked older, more tired. Life in a smaller rental, with Brad at a lower-paying job after his leave, had humbled them in ways my lectures never could. Hi, Dad, she said quietly. I nodded. Hi, Ash. Her eyes flicked to the tree, the modest gifts, the warm room. I heard you moved, she said. It's nice. Thank you, I replied. You're welcome here if you come with respect. She swallowed. Maybe sometime, she said. Not today. I nodded again. One step at a time. After they left, I sat back down with my cocoa and listened to the wind outside. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'd set my boundaries. I'd accepted the cost. Ashley and Brad had wanted to teach me a lesson by denying me something as small as a present under a tree. What they got instead was the lesson that love is not the same as access, that a parent's generosity is not an infinite resource, that if you turn someone into an object, a wallet, a burden, a problem to be managed, you shouldn't be shocked when they stop playing along. I didn't send them to jail, though maybe I could have. I didn't take their children from them. I didn't stand on their lawn and celebrate when the moving truck came. I simply stopped funding my own mistreatment. So here I am, an old man in a quiet condo, at peace with the choices I made, even if they still sting some nights. My daughter once said, "No presents for you, Dad. You need to learn your lesson." In the end, she was half right. There were no presents for me that night. But the lesson? That belonged to her. Now I'll ask you, was I wrong to call in the debt, to change my will, to pull the plug on their access to my money? Or did they finally get the only kind of present they were ever really asking for? Consequences.
My grandpa's worst really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.